Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Welcome everybody to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello everyone.
And you are listening to us on CIVL, broadcasting in BC across the Fraser Valley. You can live stream us on civl.ca and you're listening to us on 101.7 FM. And we are broadcasting from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. And by the way, you can also catch all the previous episodes of Unlocking Your Truth at drlesliephillips.com on the podcast stream. Well, we are absolutely delighted today. We have a fabulous guest that we're going to introduce you to in a moment. And of course, if you're a regular listener, you know that Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show, and it is about spirituality and it's about metaphysics, and we love talking about that subject, and as well we love answering your questions. And we have an expert in the studio today who's well equipped to answer some of the most popular questions that you send to us.
Very true.
Yes, listeners, we get a lot of questions about relationships. Now, our guest today is Dr. Kleber Mbenoun, and he has written a book, and his book is called More Than a Great Partner: How to Find and Keep the Right Mate, and it's a book published by Dove Christian Publishers. And his story is that after becoming a committed Christian, he waited in chastity and sought his spouse for 5 years. And during that enlightening experience, God revealed to him principles that helped him find the right spouse among other potential good partners. And he's now sharing that information with other people in the hope that it can help them to find happiness and love. And now he's been married for 12 years and he's the father of 3 children. Welcome to the show, Kleber.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Phillips, for having me on your show.
You're very, very welcome. So please tell us more. In your experience, how difficult is it for a single person to find a compatible mate?
Well, I spoke to many people about the challenge they face in finding the right mate. One African-American physician told me, I asked her, how, doctor, is it easy/hard for you to find a suitable partner? And she said, well, there are 10 people like me talking. She said 10 people like me, 10 women like me, competing for one good man. And she said a good man, in her view, was a man. She was African-American, so a good man was a man, an African-American, without kids, with a good education, with some income.
Mm.
And she said, after a pause, to tell you the truth, there are 20 women like me competing for one good man. Now, I can tell you that 70 to 75% of African-American women are single. And 42% of them may not even get married.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, 42%
wow,
of them may not even get married. So, now, talking in the general population is really hard, but more so for African American than for a Caucasian to find a good partner. Now, it's almost impossible to find the right mate on your own, that I can say.
Mm. That's an interesting. Sure. Yeah, sorry, it's an interesting perspective, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people resist. You know, it's very common for a mother, for example, to want to help her daughter find the right husband. And I think people often tend to resist that, don't they? Until they grow older and think, well, I wish I'd listened to my mother.
It's interesting. You would figure, when you listen to the general population and people that are dating, they've got all the websites and online dating circumstances, and they ask all the pertinent questions, but people don't understand. People aren't honest about who they are. They don't show themselves the truth about themselves up front in a lot of situations. I think that's one of the main problems when people are looking for a relationship.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. I read an article talking about the issue people face when they date online. For instance, they say that 53% of people who date online lie about who they are.
Oh, yeah.
Women more than men. Women like more about their looks and men more about the financial condition. Yes. So, and I say that dating, in my opinion, really is not the solution. Just look at the statistic. 50% of people divorce.
Yes.
And I can say that 85 to 90% of people who are married struggle. So dating doesn't work.
Yes. So what is the solution? If dating doesn't work, what alternative is there?
Well, we got to go back to the basic. The first thing is we have to understand that this world, the physical world we live in, was created by a spiritual world. Mm-hmm. So God created everything, and marriage was actually his idea. So most people we talk to, they will say, well, I don't want to have to do anything with spiritual, with church. But the fact of the matter is, nobody can find the right mate by himself. Why? Because the right mate is the best partner. You can't find the best partner unless you know everything. And only God knows everything. And the second thing is, most relationship partners are poor. Most people are poor relationship partners. Right? So we need to change. They need to be changed, transformed before going into a relationship. And once again, only God can perform this kind of transformation.
So you're saying that really it's important for all of us to really know ourselves deeply and do our own inner work and our own inner healing before we look for a mate, because then we increase the chances of a successful relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two steps. The first step is you need to understand that on your own you can't do it. The second step is, yes, you need to do your own personal healing. You need to know who you are. You need to be ready for that relationship. Why? Because most people can date. Most people can live happily, quote unquote, in a short-term relationship. But not everybody is equipped to live in a long-term relationship as marriage is. Yes. It's very critical to be prepared for that marriage.
Is a long-term marriage relationship right for everybody, or are there some people where a different way of life is more appropriate for them?
Now, my understanding of that is that not everybody may be for marriage, but I believe that everyone who wants to be married is entitled to a good marriage. Although,
right. That makes sense. Yes, yeah. And so can you explain your process for helping people find a good marriage partner?
Yeah, well, it's very simple. The first thing I make them understand is that you cannot find on your own the right mate. Now, you can find on your own a good partner and have a good relationship, assuming that you yourself is marriage material. Now, I define the right mate as being the best possible partner anybody can find, who comes with a promise of a lasting, loving, and fulfilling relationship. And like I said before, you can't find the best unless you know every possibility.
Right.
So once somebody understands it, then I will show them what to do. God has 5 basic requirements. Quickly, the first requirement is, well, you have to know God. You have to be in a relationship with him. That's the first requirement. I mean, you can't ask him for a mate if you don't even talk to him. Right? Second requirement is you have to live a holy life. Now, holy life doesn't mean perfect life. You have to live a clean life empowered by the Spirit of God. That means if you cheat, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, it's obvious that you're not really walking the way God wants you to. So the third principle is you have to request, to make that request. That's what we call praying to God. People pray for jobs, people pray for money, people pray for healing. So people should pray for a wife or a husband. And the fourth requirement is you have to see the right mate through God's eyes. And in God's view, the right mate is not necessarily the hottest bachelor, is not the most beautiful woman, the handsomest man with a lot of money. No, God doesn't see things that way. The right mate may just be a normal, average person. So this is one of the reasons why many people, including within the church, can't find the right mate, because they set their standard very high. Unless he has the book, unless he has money, unless he has fame, I'm not going to get married to him.
Right.
The last reason is you got to allow God to change you, right? Why is it important? Because, like I say, most people are poor relationship partners. What I mean by that is most people are shallow, they are prone to cheat, they argue, they don't know how to forgive, they are proud, they are selfish, and those characteristics do not make marriage work.
Yes.
Really clean up, become humble and gentle and kind before you can make a relationship work. So those are the 5 steps.
Yes. I think forgiveness is really important.
I agree, and as I said earlier, a lot of people try to feign those wonderful characteristics, but it's hard. It's hard to live with somebody day in, day out, and without them actually seeing who you are. So you can try to pretend, and it doesn't work, and it's difficult for some people to change. But like you say, when you rely on an outside source in this, not an outside source, but an internal spiritual source, then things do change. I mean, I've met a lot of people that have, on both sides of that coin, that have had terrible relationships, and some that have had just magnificent relationships. It's absolutely wonderful, you know. And I have a friend who's a Buddhist monk in Los Angeles, and what she says, she wrote a book about this. She says, be the person you want to find. I mean, you can't just go out and find somebody wonderful and kind and generous. You have to be that wonderful, kind, and generous person in order to be with somebody who is of like mind. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, because the right mate concept is a matching one. So you can't find the right mate unless you are somebody's right mate.
Yes.
Marriage only works when it brings into the equation 2 lambs, 2 gentle persons, lamb by versus a wolf, right? Now, when you bring a wolf and a lamb, it's not going to work because they are different nature. When you bring 2 wolves in a relationship, it's not going to work because they're going to kill each other. So marriage only works when it brings together a lamb, a gentle person, kind, honest, with another gentle person, kind and honest. You do not have to be at the same level, but you should have some good in both of them. And that's why, yes, you got to be that person before you can find the right.
Yeah, I think another biblical quote that I loved was, "Don't yoke your oxen unequally."
Yeah. Yes. That's true on the spiritual sense, because from the biblical perspective, there are 2 spiritual kingdoms. There are the kingdom of God, there's a kingdom of God and the kingdom of Satan. Now, when you become a Christian, you basically belong to the kingdom of God, which is at war with the kingdom of Satan. So that's why when you are a Christian, Paul advises not to get married to and unbeliever because you belong to two kingdoms.
True. True.
These principles that you're talking about, I believe apply to anyone, no matter what religion they might follow. Do you agree?
Now, God belongs to everyone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But my understanding, that I may disagree. My understanding is that my understanding, I'm a Christian. God provided a channel, right? In the past, God spoke to prophets. Like I say, I'm a Christian, so I follow the Bible. And when Jesus Christ came into the scene, God said, well, this is going to be the channel through which I'm going to interact with you. So we are sinners. We've committed sins against God that we cannot pay. And God said, the price of sin is a death penalty, but I love you so much that I don't want you to die. So I provided somebody to die for you. And if you accept that person, you're going to be forgiven and you're going to come into fellowship with me. Now, not everybody has to agree with it, but that's my belief.
Yeah, but yet, and I don't want to Bible bash or anything, but yet, when Jesus was walking with Peter, Peter said, "Look at those people. They're healing in your name, and they're not part of our group. They're not part of us." And Jesus says, as long as they're doing good, as long as they're doing my work, then what's the problem? And so, with goodness, like we talk about all these wonderful characteristics, kindness, goodness, patience, long-suffering, forgiveness. These are all Christian attitudes, Christ-like attitudes. However, again, Jesus said, there are many mansions in my Father's house. And I believe that he means there's many mansions in my Father's house for everyone. And relationships, I think relationships are the same thing. I think there are relationships out there for everyone, regardless, like healthy, wonderful, kind, loving relationships for everyone of every religion. And I think it all has to do with who you are inside. I agree with you. It's your spiritual nature. You can't. I don't believe you can have an evil intent and have a good relationship with someone, even if they're evil, have an evil intent as well. You have to base it on those principles, those Christ-like principles.
Love, acceptance, forgiveness, and all of that good stuff. Well, listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and with our guest today, Dr. Kleber Mbenoun, who has written a book called More Than a Great Partner, How to Find and Keep the Right Mate. And we're having a discussion about what is the path that you can take to create a successful relationship and marriage. And we're going to take a break now, but we will be back after these few short messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and our guest today, Dr. Kleber Mbenoun. And this show is dedicated to talk about relationships. And we know that that is a subject that is close to your hearts because you're always writing in with questions about relationships. And in the last segment of the show, I'm going to ask Dr. Kleber some of the common questions we get so that you can get some advice from a different perspective. But for now, let's continue our discussion. You were telling us before the break about the ingredients for a successful marriage and for finding a successful mate. Do you have any case studies or examples that you could share with us that help us get a personalized flavor for what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, first of all, if you allow me to, I will give the ingredients.
Yes.
Some of the ingredients I found.
Yep.
Now, the first ingredient I would say is love. Now, I don't mean by love the feelings people have because you just found a new person. I mean true love for human being.
Mm.
It's really when you see your friend, your fiancé love other people regardless, then you will know the amount of love he has in his heart.
Yeah.
Because as the object of his interest, he's going to love you some way or somehow. But that's not really what you want to see. You want to see the way he expresses love to other people.
Mm.
Now, the second I will mention is the humility. Now, let me say that humility is a divine characteristic.
Mm.
It's a divine. We all by nature, we have some level of pride in us. So really you need to have God to give you some amount of humility. Now, the third I would say is you want someone who has a sense of commitment. Someone who comes in a relationship saying that, hey, I'm here regardless. You can get fired, you can get sick, you can get poor, I'm here. That's what you want to see.
Mm.
You also want to have a person with integrity. And the highest mark of integrity I've found so far is how a person handles financial matters.
Mm.
Somebody is honest with money, I can tell you he will be honest with most of the things.
Mm.
Another thing, you want a sense, somebody who can forgive. Because if for the rest of your life with somebody, being imperfect, you're going to offend, you're going to disappoint. So how are you going to survive it unless you have a mechanism that forgives all the time?
Yeah.
And to tell you, some offense that I cannot forgive myself unless I ask God to help me. So another characteristic I would say is that you want somebody who's extramarital affair proof. That means someone who's equipped to resist and overcome sexual temptation. Now, as God's creation, we have built in us an attraction for the opposite sex. It's a spiritual thing in us. That means regardless of how beautiful is your wife, you're going to see other beautiful women. Regardless of how handsome is your husband, you're going to see other good-looking men. Unless you have built in you a strategy and spiritual power to overcome it. Now, I can tell you, for example, before I got married, before I became a Christian, I thought it was impossible for a man to stay faithful for the rest of your life. It could not make sense. How could you stay faithful living with the same woman for the rest of our life with so many women out there? But when God changed me, transformed me, when God was transforming me, He let me stay 5 years without even kissing a girl. Because God said, you know what? I need to discipline you. I need to build up your inner person. So overall, yeah, those are some of the characteristics you want to have, develop, or you want to see in another person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting you said that. Staying faithful has always been a challenge for people in general. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. But I find that in today's society, I mean, I feel bad for younger people coming up because I turn on my computer and I go to watch a show and there's pornography comes up every left, right, center, every which way, just automatically. It's disgusting. It's
and children are being exposed to this. I mean, when we were growing up, that wasn't. You never saw that.
But you had to hide the Penthouse book if the magazines. Yeah.
But it must affect people's consciousness. I mean, I wonder. It must be very different to grow up now in that environment than it used to be.
And of course, they're further away from the same people, the same children are further and further away from any spiritual belief whatsoever, whether it be a religion or just a spiritual nature.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is extremely difficult for anybody. Really, I mean, we are assaulted every day through TV, movies, everything we listen to. with sexual temptation. That's why I believe one of the weapons you can use is to develop your inner person, your spiritual power. So spiritual power makes a difference. Let's say when you are spiritually weak and you see an advertisement with a woman half naked. When you are spiritually weak, your assessment of that advertisement is different from when you are spiritually strong. So when you are weak, you will say, oh, this woman, she looks so good, she's beautiful. Why? Because your inner person spirit is weak. But when you are spiritually strong and filled with the Holy Spirit, and you see that same advertisement, you are revolted. You say that, oh, why do you have to do this? This is so gross. Why? Same picture, but different as interpretation depending on your spiritual state.
Well, and one is objectifying what they're seeing, and the other is that's a real person. You know, it's not an object. It's a real person.
Yeah, you know, there's a new dating a dating movement, or it's not actually all that new. It's a few years old. There's a dating movement of how to meet women in bars or places, and one of the factors is when you go up that within 1 minute you have to put down the woman in some way, shape, or form. You know, even if she's the most beautiful woman, you have to tell her, your nose is a little funny. You know, it's and I listen to some of these men, these people, these men talk about this, and I feel so sorry for them that they feel that that's one of the ways, you know, women.
It's like they're going hunting and they're manipulating their prey.
Yeah, it's like, for me, they're missing the point. Like these creatures, these wonderful creatures called women, or are just so spiritually lovely. Why do you have to do that to meet them? You know, like I have no problem with arguments or not agreeing with everything a woman says or things like that. But in order to meet a woman, you have to put her down. I think that is such. Somebody was talking to me about that the other day. I was somewhere with a few guys, and they were saying that, and I just said, you know, gentlemen, I can't stay in this conversation because I think you're all a bunch of losers. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that, you know, if that's what you got to do to meet women, I really feel bad. I have an example of that. Let me give you one quick example. To let you know, Kleber, I work a little bit in the film industry. I'm an extra in films. And I was at a table with 3 people, and it was a gala event. We were all dressed in tuxedos, and the women were dressed in beautiful dresses. And I was standing there with a gentleman, another woman, and a very beautiful young 25-year-old woman. I mean, very, very lovely. And so she was also a really wonderful individual. This guy comes up during one of the breaks and says to her, he says, I'm over at that table with that guy over there, and it would make his day, you know, if you came over and had a cup of coffee with him at his place. And then he said something, I won't repeat it on the radio show, and she looked at him, and she handled it so lovely, and she just says, no, thank you. Bye. You know, and my mouth went down to here. It dropped. I couldn't believe that this fella said what he has said to her. And I mean, he could have, if she wanted to, she could have had him fired right on the spot. But it's incredible that in today's society, men don't respect the goddess nature, or the wonderful spiritual nature, the beautiful creature that women are. They have to go to pornography, and even more so today, all the games online are all pornographic now. It's terrible.
Well, and they don't see the God inside themselves either.
That's why. But
they're
that's
operating from their lower nature, aren't they?
Yeah. Your opinion?
Yeah, well, to come back, she asked me a question about like a personal experience about the characteristic.
Yes.
So I'll tell you a story, short story. I met a man, his name was Luis Nevares. He's from Costa Rica.
Mm.
And he said he was a drug dealer, a gangster. And he said that at one point he went to jail. And he went to jail after a robbery that turned bad. All of his friends were killed and he was rescued. He went to jail and he was depressed. And in that cell, he prayed. He said, God, if you're real, my mom talked about you, come here and show me that you love me. Well, anyway, he gave his life to Jesus Christ and he became a Christian. So he started looking for a wife. And God led him to Virginia here, not far from where I am. And God gave him his wife. At one point, that young lady asked him, have you ever killed someone? And his answer was, I committed all kinds of crime except sleeping with another man. So what I'm trying to say is that God was able to take that drug dealer, that gangster, that man who committed almost all kinds of sins, and transform him into a lovely, humble, and gentle husband. So when the woman, he told that young woman his story, because I told the whole story in my book, and he asked the woman, what do you think about what I just shared? Because he was so afraid that after listening to her past, to his past, the woman is going to say, you know what, I don't want to have to do anything with you. He said the woman stood quiet for a few seconds, and she said, well, if God forgave you, who am I to judge you? So they are married today, they have 3 children. So this is just an example of how God can transform someone and build into that person the characteristic that make relationships successful.
Now, I want to ask you, where we were talking earlier that it's dating apps and all of that doesn't work. So where should somebody go to meet their mate? Where is a good place to find a mate? Oh, Kleber, hi. I was just asking, where is a good place to find a mate?
Well, the good place is in the presence of God. What I'm trying to say is that you can find a mate in the church, in the school, anywhere you want. But when you develop that relationship with God, that intimacy with God, He will give you a mate any way He wants to. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I understand. I get what you're saying now. Yeah. I mean, it can be anywhere so long as it's in the presence of God.
Yes. Now, on the practical side of it is, you don't stay in your house, right? You got to go out. You can attend it. You can become a volunteer in the library. You can become part of, get involved in some kind of activity. Your job is to position yourself where God can make the connection.
Right. Yeah. You're muted, Corey.
But again, it has to be an honest portrayal of who you are. I have a friend who's very big into online gaming, and she had a whole bunch of people she used to game with. And at one point, one of her friends came up to me, who we were all having a big lunch together. And he asked me, he says, Corey, says, you date a bit and you meet women. He says, how do you meet women? I said, it's very simple. I said, there's a thing on your computer. It's called a switch, the on switch. It also turns your computer off. So you need to turn the computer off, get up and walk outside of your house. But it's useless for this man to turn his computer off because he loves gaming so much. For him to go and work at a library, would be, and try to show him be someone who loves books. He should find somewhere with similar interests at least, so that they have at least some commonality with regards to initiating some sort of a relationship. And yes, it's wonderful to have that spiritual nature. They both have to have the spiritual nature in essence. I'm not saying he didn't have that, but he didn't have the social capability of meeting women. It's very interesting. But yes, and I agree with you, when you turn into that spiritual nature, into God, or some of our listeners would call it the universe, whatever you want to name it as, I think there is a strength in that, and there is a deliverance in that from actually who you are, in essence, the negative portion of who you are.
Yeah, so, I can tell you a story, a very nice story of how God can bring. I remember a girl a young lady, I would say, she belongs to my church, but before she joined the church, she said that she didn't want to get married because she was married before and it went very bad. And then she said she doesn't want to have kids either because she said most of her relatives actually wound up being single parents. So she didn't want that. So she joined the church, she had those ideas in her mind. At one point, God started touching her heart, changing her. And she said she had a conference call with her friend. She used to hold a conference call with her friend after church. She said that particular Sunday, she was having that conference call. She excused herself because she had something to do. And when she came back, she said her friend were talking about relationship. And one of her friends called her out. She said, yeah, I know you're not going to get married because everything you do is just stay home, sleep after school. You don't date in school. You don't date at work. You don't do anything. And she said she made a prayer in her heart. She said, God, you heard what they say. If you really want me to get married, send my husband here. That was a Sunday. Next Monday, that would be the day after, a young man came, knocked at the door. Now, he didn't say, I'm sent by God to marry you. Of course. He said, I came here to deliver the new refrigerator. And as we were interacting, she said, God spoke to her, and she said, this is your husband. So she gave him her number, and they started exchanging. The guy was from Honduras. They start talking, texting each other. And she said because the guy didn't speak proper English. At one point, she asked the guy, marry me. But the guy's like, it doesn't work that way. You don't ask me to marry you. I decided I want to marry you or not. Well, to make the story short, the guy eventually talked to his mother, he prayed, and then they married today. They married today. And she said, at first, her friends say, come on, girl, you got to be serious. Where's your class? Where's your ambition? You get married to a guy who delivers refrigerators? And she said, God had already convinced her in the heart that those things are not important. The heart of the person is the most important. And they stay married. She told me that when her friend witnessed the beauty of a relationship, they turned around and came to say, you know what? At first we criticized, but now we can see that it was really God who put you together. As a matter of fact, one of her friends decided to accept God after that story. So yeah, God can send a person to your house. You can meet him in the library. You can meet him online. You can meet him anywhere. I met my wife through a relative. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that wonderful story. We do have to go to break again, but we will be back after these few short messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and today's guest, Dr. Kleber Mbenoun, and we are talking about relationships and how to find a great partner. And he's been sharing some of the qualities that help you that you can cultivate within yourself that make you yourself a good partner, and therefore make meeting someone and having a long-term relationship more likely to happen. So
just like us, dear. Just like us. So Dr. Kleber,
we get lots of questions from our listeners writing in asking for relationship advice. And one of the most common questions we get is when somebody is already in a marriage, already in a relationship, and things are not going well. And they're trying to decide, should I give up? Should I get a divorce? Should I leave this person? Is there a chance that things might be able to get better? So, without knowing specific cases, what general advice could you give to somebody who's in that situation?
Oh yeah, well, there's some principle. The first thing is you do not have the power to fix it. Are you following me? Yes. Yep. So yeah, I'll try to say that the first thing is nobody has the power to fix a broken relationship. You need to get God involved. Why? Because only God can change you or your husband or wife. The first thing. Only God can change people. The second thing is that only God can recreate love. So the practicality of it is the first thing you get to be in touch with God. You get to have a relationship with God. Now, in my understanding, you got to give your life to Jesus Christ. So once you do that, you become a child of God. Then you're going to proceed and ask God, should I go or should I stay? Believe me, it's as simple as that. Should I go or should I stay? So what happened is God going to answer you. God going to answer you either by the general principle is most of the time when you'll be married for a long time, you have kids, you have investment together, most of the time God will prefer to fix that relationship than to allow divorce. That's the second thing. So once you ask God, God will let you know if you should go or stay. Now, if God asks you to stay, this is a key. You start praying God to come and transform you or your husband. God will come at one condition, and this is the key. You don't fight, you don't argue, because by doing that, you're telling God that, you know what, I can handle it. And God's principle is when you find yourself in that situation, you let Him defend you. What I mean by, if you're a wife and your husband is fooling around, you don't argue with him. You don't fight him. You don't oppose him. You do what God expects you to do as a wife. That means if you have to cook, you do what you expect to do. So when you put yourself in that position, then God will come to your rescue. But if you start arguing and fighting, and then God will back off and say, you know what? If you can handle it, I'm not there, you do it. That's the key. Now, nobody can do it on his own power. Let's say your husband is cheating on you. You cannot just be loving if your husband is cheating on you. So God will give you the power to do it. Excuse me. God will give you the power to do it, to withstand whatever the person is doing. And then it's not going to be fixed overnight. As you create your intimacy with God, as you wait, then God is going to start changing the situation around. I've seen it work over and over, but the challenge people have is that they're trying to fix it themselves.
Actually, I mean, you sort of bring up another common question that we get, and mainly from women, and they're trying to figure out, is he cheating on me? You know, is he, how do I know, is he cheating on me? You know?
Oh, well, the first thing is, before when you know he's cheating on you, once his relationship with God become loose, let's say he doesn't go to church, he doesn't pray with you anymore, he doesn't do a certain number of things to keep a strong relationship with God, then the potential of cheating on you is really, really high. Now, is he cheating on you? Well, you know, women know how to figure out when he's cheating on you. You know, They know when he's coming late, when he become emotionally distant, when he doesn't show affection as he used to be.
The other thing is, how can I have faith that he won't do it again?
Oh, well, like I said, we are prone, all men, including myself, to cheat, right? Because it's part of our nature. It's part of our nature to be attracted to something that's new and beautiful. So the only guarantee I've seen that he doesn't do it, like I said before, he has to have inner spiritual strength. That's the only way. So because the closer he is from God, the more like he's like God. You are close to God, you become like God. You are away from God, well, you are away, your character doesn't look like God. So if you really want your husband, your wife, especially husband, not to cheat on you, you got to create an atmosphere where that man can develop a strong intimacy with God.
Thank you. Well, and another question we get is people writing in, and they have been through a breakup with somebody, and they either want to get back together and want to know will they get back together, or how they can get back together. So what do you say to people who a relationship is already broken down, but they haven't moved on from that relationship breaking down? And what can you say to strengthen them, to comfort them, how they can take a spiritual perspective on their situation?
Yeah, the first thing I would like to tell that person is that you really don't know if the person you want to get back with is the right person or not. So the first question you want to do is ask God, Father, should I get back with this person? Just as simple as that. Now, of course, God's going to answer you when you have established a relationship with him. Now, most people fear losing a prize because if they let that person go, they will not find somebody else. When you know God, you do not have these kind of fear. So you ask God, should I go back with that person or not? And if God says no, just leave that person, because the no God gave you means I have somebody better for you. Just that simple. Because if that person has not developed this characteristic we spoke about, it's not going to work. And he cannot change himself. He cannot fix it. For instance, you cannot become unselfish by yourself. You cannot become humble by yourself. You cannot become generous by yourself. Something has to be changed from within you to make you a new person. So you ask God, God knows everything, and he will say, no, don't go back to that person. I'm going to find you somebody else. Or he will say, yes, you can go back, but you got to do it my way now. You just don't get involved and sleep around. You got to remain chaste and go through the process, go to a pastor and be united in the conventional way.
So there's a couple of common questions that we get. And I think both of them stem from the same issue, which is low self-esteem and low self-worth. So one of them is, it's almost like the person wants to know, be absolutely certain about how another person, they want to know, how does the person feel about me, because they want to feel safe and secure, and they are feeling unworthy. And the other one is, we often get asked, when will I meet somebody? When will I meet my soulmate? When is this going to happen for me? And it's usually because the person is feeling very unhappy within themselves, and they believe that having a relationship, it will be like having a magic wand that solves all of their problems. And so really it's the thing that people are not willing to do their inner work. They want a magic wand to come and solve it, right? So they're feeling sad, they're feeling unworthy, and something from outside of themselves, not God, another person, the belief is, can come and solve that. What do you have to say to those people?
Yeah, first of all, we didn't get a chance to talk about the devastating effect of dating, because most of these feelings come from bad relationships in the past, the wound, the hurts, and all that. So those are one of the reasons why I think dating is not a good thing to do. Now, to come back to that person, many people feel unfit because of the education, level of education, the income, the way they look, how old they are, and all that. But in reality, I believe that unless you define yourself, unless you get to see yourself the way God sees you, this is spiritual. I don't think that somebody who doesn't really have a relationship with God can grasp the whole thing. But what I'm trying to say is that unless you define yourself, you view yourself like God sees you. How God sees you? God sees you as a beautiful person. God sees you as a masterpiece. You are unique. You're not just like anybody. Everybody here is unique. So once you develop that relationship with God, He's going to build your self-esteem. He's going to show you that you are not an accident, no, regardless of how you look. You are beautiful in my eyes. And guess what? I have someone for you. So once you develop that relationship, God going to build up your self-esteem. And I think that's one of the ways you build up your self-esteem. And unless you learn how to be happy by yourself, you really cannot be happy in a relationship. So that's why God makes you wait for time. You be happy being single, and then He gets you in a relationship.
Exactly. And that's probably a really positive note to finish on. We've unfortunately come to the end of the show. But thank you so much, Dr. Kleber, for being on the show and for giving us your perspective about relationships. If any of our listeners want to be in contact with you or they want to purchase your book, how can they do that?
Oh yeah, I have an email. Is findaspouse@yahoo.com, findaspouse@yahoo.com. And my book can be purchased on Amazon, on my publisher website, which is dovechristianpublisher.com. Again, dovechristianpublishers.com.
Great. So that's dovechristianpublishers.com, and the book is called More Than a Great Partner, How to Find and Keep the Right Mate by Dr. Kleber Mbenoun. Well, thank you so very much once again. And listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And we'll be back next week at the same time, 7 o'clock Pacific time on 101.7 FM.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.